been with TextUs for a little over 18 months now. I head up the account management team. So my team is responsible for renewals, cross sells, and upsells with all of our customers. We have a pretty big customer base. So we have about 1,100 customers that we handle direct in our business, and everything from SMB all the way up to enterprise. So we're kind of covering the whole gamut there with that business. Developing existing accounts is 100% of what we do all of the time. So the role of renewing customers, which is developing those accounts, making sure that they're happy and that they're going to stay with us and that their users are adopting our platform, and then also wanting to make sure that they're learning kind of the new features and products that we release. And that in terms of acquiring new business, my role in that really is kind of the cross-sell upsell piece. So the new business would be within existing customers or some other subsidiary within that organization. So I don't want to say brand names here, but if there's a specific company XYZ, but they have a marketing department and a sales department, we want to be able to grow and get a bit more broad across that business. So that's how we're acquiring new business in that way. And then also, a lot of times my team, the account managers, will come in the early discussions for new business with the account executives. And they'll kind of show off a little bit with some of the demoing of the platform or just talking about best practices, especially in those enterprise deals. Their just expertise and their experience with the use cases and the best practices and how our customers are actively using the platform every day, that is very valuable in those conversations. Yeah, I think it is very important, but I don't think it's important just in an economy like we have today. I think it's always important, because the easiest way to grow your existing business is selling through your existing customers, right? And selling through your happy customers. So it comes down to, do you have a strong support team, right? Do you handle those requests, make sure that if there are issues, those issues get dealt with quickly and in a way that the customer doesn't feel as much pain. And then second, from your kind of customer success or account management team, making sure that the customer feels supported and that they also have kind of an expert at their call, right? So if they have questions or if they need to have expertise or just guidance on how to do something or better use something, they've got somebody who's really that subject matter expert right at their fingertips. And that makes it so much easier to sell more into a customer, because it's really not selling, you're solving pain, right? So you're saying, like, I hear you have this problem. I can solve that for you. And here's how. Maybe it's adding extra seats because you're trying to expand, you have more recruiters, or maybe it's a situation where, I don't know, your sales and marketing team, like, for example, we released keywords last year. And so being able to put keyword automation into a lot of the campaigns that our customers were using, we just made their jobs easier. So that was a lot easier sell. When you're on the other end of it with new sales, I mean, you've got to prove everything, especially if there's an incumbent and you're trying to like overtake that person who's already there and sell this new solution. So you've got to prove all those points rather than just making sure that you're solid from the start and go from there and say, like, this is how we're going to grow from that. So to get back to your question about like how in this economy, I do think it is really, really important. When my team has really kind of 3 KPIs that we have to focus on all of the time. And that's net retention, gross retention, but it's also around margin and it's also around NPS. And so we're really focused on, what does the expansion look like? What does churn look like? And what do downgrades look like? And in an economy like this, that's where we're trying to manage, like, okay, we don't want to lose customers. So if we have to manage against losing a customer because of pricing, we would rather manage to a downgrade, because we know we can grow them back in the future when things turn around or when their business turns around. Expansion might be a little bit more difficult at times for exactly the reasons you kind of pointed out. But if we can also show how they gain efficiency. So when a lot of companies are doing, and we're hearing this a lot in like staffing and recruiting, is those companies are doing more with less. And so we try to make that easy. So that's where automation and keywords and things like that come in, because that little bit of expansion, they spend a little more with us, but they're going to gain so much more ROI on the back end. I think it really starts with understanding their business. So one of the things that I talk about with my team frequently is like, let's make sure that when we're having, whether it's a QBR or whether it's just a kind of onboarding, conversation when they're a new customer, really understanding what are their goals as a business, how do they operate? And I don't just mean around how they use text in their business, but like, what are their goals as an overall business? Is it to, grow 30% year over year, or is it to reduce their headcount because they're having a challenging year or things like that? The more we understand their business, the more we can partner with them to help them succeed and meet those goals and figure out where our product, factors into that. So I think it's really about understanding the customer and their business, but then also it comes down to the relationships and the individuals. So really understanding at a human level what matters to this person. With my team, I talk about the rock star effect. Everybody likes to feel like a rock star. My job working with the point of contact at any client or customer really should be, how do I get them promoted? How do I make them look good? How do I help them look great to their boss? And then how do I make it easy for their boss to look even better to their board? So it's all about, stepping stones across those relationships, making sure that, we're meeting their needs. And then it also is how you handle things when things are difficult. Challenges happen, especially in software, right? The tech space is not immune to issues at all. So it's really like, if we have a misstep or if something goes down, how do we handle that? Do we handle it with grace? Do we come back and talk about what we could do better and how do we learn from it? So it's ultimately, I think it comes down to those relationships. But it's about knowing the key pieces. So really understanding the business, understanding what matters to the person, and then building from there. Yeah, so that's a great question. And there's not a simple answer there because, as a startup, so we're, our company as a whole, roughly about 75 people right now, but we're very quickly growing. And this year we'll end up probably over 100 people. And what we're really understanding, like I said, we have 1,100 direct accounts, and that's not including our channel and partner business. It gets really hard to manage that many accounts for an account manager who's doing all of the customer success piece, all of the expansion piece, and renewals and everything. So what we've actually just done is created a role on our team for a customer success manager. And we're going to see how that plays out. So that person is really going to lead kind of the onboarding and adoption piece when a new customer comes on board, but also when our premium products like sequences like we released today, when those get released, we want to have somebody who's really the champion with our customers who take on those new products to make sure that they're really learning how to use them and get fast value out of those new ads, and that their team is seeing how they use it. Because I think so many customers in lots of other businesses, not just ours, what they end up doing is they're like, oh, that product, that new feature sounds really cool. Sure, add it to my contract. And then nobody really digs in, nobody gets into it, and then it just sits there. And then the next renewal cycle happens and they go, yeah, we didn't use it, take it off. Well, it's not because there's not value. It's just that it really wasn't farmed. They are sort of separate functions now, but my team currently has been doing all of it at once. And I just don't think that serves all masters very well. Like there's a better way, but a small company, it's almost a necessity. As you get bigger, as you scale, it's really important to separate those two things out because you just can't do either one really, really well if you're one person. It's just too much. My first question would be why, because that is really the easiest place to start meeting a lot of your company goals. Like I said before, new revenue generation is a lot harder, and it's an uphill battle and it takes longer. So deal cycles, especially in an economy like now, they're longer and they start to spread out and take longer as well because there's just a larger consideration set and people are really taking a look at their budgets and what they can spend. So I think you really have to dig in with what's working, take a look at your books of business and understand what's driving the top 80% of your revenue. Is it a small portion? Like, for example, is it 30% of your customer base is driving 80% of your revenue, or the 80-20 rule? I guess I could use it that way. But because if it is, that's where you should really focus on. There's a lot of growth opportunity there. And then there's that opportunity in that middle space too of these customers may not be driving part of that top 80% of your revenue, but that's maybe because they're not getting enough love and attention. So what can you do to cultivate there? And that's where you put those account managers who really are the cultivators and the ones that want to have those, not just relationship building conversations, but I call them the did you know conversations, meeting with that point of contact to say, like, did you know I could make your job easier or your life easier if we did X, Y, and Z, or, use cases and best practices. So I think it's as simple as, if a SaaS leader is saying that they aren't focused on expanding existing business, I would ask why, because that's really, the first place you should be growing.